Hey, writers. It's New Year's Eve, and Laura and I are, of course, out partying. But to tide you over until the next new episode, we've combined two interviews with the wonderful Erin Heinecke. Erin is a movie TV agent who has worked for major studios and, best of all, has actually made some terrific deals for writers selling their books so that it can be adapted into TV and movies. And that is all the rage right now. So I thought these would be great interviews for you to savor while you enjoy your family and friends during the holidays, okay? Happy New Year. See you next time. Erin, thanks for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, you are the director of TV and film for what is, I think, the largest literary scouting agency in New York.
Yep, Franklin & Siegel.
So what is it that a scouting agency does?
It's interesting. It's one of those things that you hear the word and not a lot of people know about. They hear scouting and they're like, oh, location scout? Talent scout? What are you doing? And it's basically an intermediary. Our agency was founded scouting North American books for foreign markets overseas. So we represent over 25 foreign publishers in different territories, telling them what does well over here could work for their agencies. Years ago, somebody got the brilliant idea of, hey, Hollywood needs to find out about this stuff early, as do our foreign publishers. Let's start scouting for some Hollywood types. And that's how it started. And I've been at Franklin & Siegel since 2000, January 2000. So I like to keep my jobs every century, change jobs.
And you've worked on a lot of very successful projects,
Yes.
A lot of book-to-movie successes.
Yes. I mean, it's hard. The ratio is not that high of books that get optioned. That I would say out of 100 books that get optioned, I would say 8 to 10 make it.
Really? I wouldn't have even guessed it was that high.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's, if not everyone who writes a book's dream, a lot of people seeing their book turned into some kind of visual media, movie, TV, whatever. How do you make that a reality? How do you make that happen?
There are a lot of steps and a lot of people involved in getting that
Well, let's
done.
walk through them.
Absolutely. The first step is obviously write a book.
Right.
And that's, I'm sure everyone's got one in their desk drawer. That's the first step.
And the better book, the better, right?
Exactly. Because it's not only a dream to have it be, seen as a movie or a TV. You want it done well. You want the right people to do it. And you don't want a lousy version of your book to hit the screen.
Well, are there things that make some books stand out? And I don't really mean like genre. It just means some qualities that you see recurring.
Strong story, strong characters. Because when you're doing an adaptation, a screenplay, you can change things around. It doesn't matter if the writing is super strong or super literary in the book. That's going to change anyway in the screenplay. You look for things that will translate to the screen. Are there great chase sequences? Is it an action adventure? Are there set pieces? Is there a character that we care about, we love to hate? Is there stuff going on that's going to keep an audience intrigued?
Right, that makes sense. All right, so you write a spectacular book, and
Absolutely,
then what?
book, a great book, bestseller, sells millions. Then you want to
because that makes it more likely to catch the attention of people in Hollywood.
It doesn't need to be, but it definitely gets people's attention, and it's definitely going to get you a better market price for your option fee. So once you get the big book and it's a huge success, then hopefully you would have a lit agent recommend you to a book to film agent, and they split the commission. They split the 15% commission.
Is the agent essential for the movie deal?
I would say more often than not, 9 times out of 10, you're going to need an agent for a film deal or a TV deal. For legal
Hollywood
reasons.
more comfortable working with an agent?
Yes. They're known quantity. They know them if they, they're a reputable agency that they're coming from. Also, it's for legal reasons. They want to protect themselves, and the author should want to protect themselves as well. So it's for both sides. They can't take anything unsolicited or unagented.
You talked about writing bestsellers, but it seems to me, maybe not as often, but sometimes books I've never heard of, or even indie projects that were not high-profile books still end up getting turned into something, movie, television.
Absolutely.
Something.
And now there's no better time than now because there's so many avenues to go to. There's not just the traditional broadcast networks or the traditional studio movies. There's streaming. There's Netflix, there's Hulu, there's Amazon. There's so many more up and coming ones. CBS All Access. Every network is going to jump on that. And there's just so many places to go. And with streaming, you're not beholden to a schedule. It's endless. They can make it. They can put it up. You can watch it whenever. And I think people are getting into that, binging shows on their own schedule, watching it on their own schedule, So there's no end to the material that they need.
So the buying season is all year long,
Always.
I imagine.
Pilot season has become all year long, too. Which is great for authors, which is great for scouts like me.
Okay, so you've written the book, you've got an agent, now what?
Now you have the agent do submissions. And it's a good thing to talk with the agent about their plan. Do they see this as a series? Is this a limited series, a recurring series? Is this a half hour? Is this an hour? Or is it a feature film? How are we going to do this? And have a plan in mind, a targeted submission. So that's when they take over and they say, I think this is a feature film, and I'm going to submit to X, Y, and Z producers. And they usually come up with a plan. Or they may say, I think we're going to go to directors for this. This is a director's piece. We're going to do that and target it towards, specific talent.
How much of that, and I know this is going to be hard to quantify, but how much of it do you think is skill of the agent and how much is just right book in the right place at the right time?
You definitely want a skilled agent, but it's the latter.
It's a little of both. Oh,
I think it's probably a little bit of the latter, because you can have the best agent in town. If people aren't buying that genre or that type of thing, timing is huge. So you definitely want your agent to be skilled and well connected and well respected, but timing is everything.
All right, so you got the agent. They're making submissions. I'm going to guess the next step is somebody likes it.
Hopefully, and hopefully many like it. So then there's an auction.
Oh, even better, yes.
You can have the outright buy, or hopefully if there are many parties bidding, you got yourself an auction on your hands. And the agent handles that. And it could be a case of when 50 Shades of Grey was on the market and it became this runaway hit because of the e-book sales, because people could read it on the subway and nobody knew they were reading a naughty read, and the mommy book clubs came and made it a huge hit. It took off. The author and her agent flew to LA. They set themselves up in the Soho House in West Hollywood, and that book was so huge and everybody wanted it that they could sit back and everybody came to them.
Oh, sweet.
And did like their dog and pony show of why we should get this. And I heard, rumor was one of the studios made their own red room with like the whips and chains and the whole thing. I don't know if that's true or not, but everybody tried to woo her. And in the day, my studio, Universal, got it for them and Focus Features, their smaller kind of art housey subgenre. And they won the day. And it was basically because they were willing to pay a good amount for the option price, but they also had the right vision. And the author was like, they're the ones I want to do the book with. They get it.
What, can you say a little more about that? I mean, what was the vision? Did the author have something in particular in mind?
I think they came with that. We're definitely going to get a female director. We're going to go. And the plan that they had for it, which had done so incredibly well, they paid a hefty option price. They paid, I think it was $4 million for all three books. Yeah. But they filmed it in Vancouver. There were two relatively, not unknowns, but lesser known actors, Jimmy Dornan and Dakota Johnson. They're well known, but not big enough to open a movie. So they saved on the budget. They really scaled it back and were very smart. Sam Taylor Johnson, I think her name is. She was the director. And she really did a great job of like, all right, let's keep the budget low. And they were so smart to do that. And films too, the second and third film were shot back to back. So they saved money doing that. And it has grossed over $1 billion. That's
that turned out to be a good investment.
Absolutely. So everyone scoffed at them for paying $4 million.
Really?
Yeah.
It sounds like a good investment.
Paid off.
So you were saying the actors couldn't open the film, right? It was the book that opened the film.
It was the book. It was people were coming to see that book come to life. And I remember at first they had cast Charlie Hunnam as the lead, as Christian Grey. He was from Sons of Anarchy. And everyone was like, yeah. And then I think he got scared and walked away from the project, or maybe have scheduling conflicts. And now that I think about it, I'm like, he would have been all wrong. He wouldn't have been right for it. So it had a couple of things, and it just was one of those things that when they released it, and Donna Langley at Universal had this vision, like, people are going to go with their girlfriends, go to dinner like they did to the Sex and the City movie. Mm-hmm. And I didn't think so. I was like, women are kind of private about their,
you'd think, kind of
sexy reads and sexy movies. They're private. They'll watch it on cable, but I don't think they'll go out. Well, I was wrong. Yeah. They got together in groups and they went out with their girlfriends to see it.
It's even released, or at least one of them was on Valentine's Day, wasn't it?
Well, they timed it each one around Valentine's Day. So, and that paid off. It was a good gamble.
Kidding. Well, walk us through the rest of the process.
So then you get the film deal, and then hopefully they get moving and they get it done. Again, you can be in development hell. The exec who bought it could have left and abandoned it, who knows, but hopefully you get it made. Then once it's made, then they premiere it, and that's the whole step. Usually, if you're a first-time author, you're not going to really be involved past the option. I mean, they may as a courtesy, but some places
because you don't have enough clout.
You don't have enough clout, or you haven't done this before. But some places give the author a crack at adapting it. Sometimes, like, oh, you want to be a screenwriter? Do you have any credit? Have you done it before? Why don't you take a crack at writing?
Any insight on how to make that happen? Because I'm sure that's what many at least authors would like.
If they would like that, I would say make yourself I forget what it is. It called. What's the program that you're supposed to be like? Final Draft.
Yes.
That's the one. Be very adverse in it. Like, be very, make yourself, comfortable with that format.
Give some indication you'd know what you're doing.
Exactly. That helps. Yeah. But, they did it like with Gone Girl. They gave Gillian Flynn. She hadn't done a screenplay before. They gave her a crack at it.
Turned out all right.
Turned out well for her as well. So there you go.
Is she continuing to do that with the Sharp Objects and whatever else?
Don't know if she did that, but she got other projects from that.
She may be too busy now.
That's true, yeah. But one of the first things that I got optioned when I was early on, I got a client, Industry Entertainment, to get 25th Hour by David Benioff. Mm-hmm. He wasn't well known at all. He had a couple of literary novels under his belt. Nobody really knew him.
Industry, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Industry got this. They got Spike Lee to direct, Edward Norton to star in, Philip Seymour Hoffman, this amazing cast. And after that, he was never out of work a day. He never had a free day after that because he did a Batman movie after that. And then before you know it, here comes Game of Thrones.
Right.
So I don't think he's, sweating, he's sweating a budget.
And appears to be content to work in television and film. I mean, I mentioned
TV's
taking
such great chances now. Yeah, so they're really, you can really become, like they used to say film was a director's medium, TV's the writer's medium. Now it's a little bit of both, because I think you're getting A-list talent interested in doing TV, thanks to things like True Detective and Big Little Lies. So it's really kind of spicing up the TV market, which is nice.
Any words of advice? And I know this is a pretty big, broad, general question, but if you're going to give any advice to authors who are writing their books and might want to sprinkle something on it to make it more appealing to Hollywood, what might that be?
I would say, and this can maybe help if, like, you don't have an agent, you're looking to get an agent, do your research. Check out, also, like, have the elevator pitch for your book at the ready. And that means have a 2 or 3 sentence pitch. If you had to pitch your book very quickly, how would you describe it in 2-3 sentences that's going to hook somebody in? So I would work on that, and also check other books that are similar and check their acknowledgement sections for their agents. Like, they always thank their agent in their acknowledgements. Right. You can be like, oh, well, this book is kind of similar. I think that audience would appreciate my book. Maybe solicit that agent from there. Just do your research and keep note of who's repping what, who's buying what. And just the more informed author is, the better is going to do a little bit better.
That makes sense. Erin, thanks for being on the podcast.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Erin, thanks for coming back to the podcast.
Happy to be here. Thanks again.
You have not always been with the literary scouting agency. You started out you were with Barwood, right?
Yes.
The Barbara Streisand, is that a production company?
Yes, that's Barbara Streisand's production company.
What kind of work did you do there?
I was a story editor there, and I had been there for 3 years, and I had been previously in publishing in the rights department.
Oh.
And
in some New York publishing house or something?
Penguin.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
where I started.
What'd you do there?
I was in subsidiary rights, and I did both adult and children's rights. I did domestic and foreign. So I did a little bit of each, but I would get all these calls and faxes from movie production companies, from studios, asking me who the agent is on this. We got one that said, "Who is the agent for Jane Austen?" So I just wrote.
And you said, me.
I wrote CAA, and I faxed it back. And we just had a good laugh over that. But I started getting all these calls. I would get all these calls from film and movie people, and I kind of became interested. So I said, well, yeah, I'll give you the information you need, but can I do a little informational with you? How did you get started? And really learned about this world of development that I never knew existed. So I was an English major. I love movies. To do something that married the two, oh my God, perfect.
Right. So you transitioned then from Viking to Barbara Streisand.
Yeah, it was just
Were they looking for somebody who could acquire projects, or?
Yes, I think they were looking for somebody with a book background as well. Really? So that was helpful.
Was this before or after The Prince of Tides?
It was
obviously based on a book.
Right, yes, which she was so involved in, and really did a great job with it and worked closely with the author. So yeah, it was after this. It was late 90s. That I was there. And it was after Mira Had Two Faces, which didn't do so well. So they were looking to acquire books. I saw a lot of theater too that they could have adapted, because the two things that we kept getting submitted, that prospective projects that people wanted Barbara to do, Yentl 2.
Yentl 2?
Yeah, like another Yentl. Yentl yet again. Or
Adventures in America or something.
Yeah, or something like that, like Papa Can Hear You. We got it. Or The Way We Were, again. They were the two things.
I can almost see a sequel to that one.
They worked on one for a long time. They were close.
The Way We Were was based on a book, though, right? The film? Or maybe there was maybe it was a novelization I'm remembering that came out after.
It might have. I think that might have been original script. Don't quote me. I should know that, but I don't know that.
So you were, at this point, not just looking at books, you were just looking
pretty much for everything. Yeah.
Projects.
Ideas. For things for her to direct or things that she would just produce. And while I was there, we did a family movie for Showtime Family.
We meaning with Barbara Streisand, the company.
Yeah, she produced it, through Barwood Films. And we did a TV movie with Laurie Metcalf that was on NBC. And we also readied a documentary about pioneering women in Hollywood for AMC.
Did that happen?
That did. That aired. And it was amazing, the number of women who worked in Hollywood as screenwriters, as directors in the 20s and 30s as opposed to now.
Oh, really? Even before Ida Lupino.
Exactly. But so many more then.
That seems even more timely now than when it probably aired. I think do you still have the rights to that?
They need to reissue that again. Get on it, AMC.
Really? Okay. And then at some point you transitioned from Barwood to working for Franklin and Siegel, where you are now, right?
Yes.
And now you just scout for everybody?
I scout for my two clients are on the feature side, I scout for Universal Studios. And then on the TV side, I scout for Paramount TV. So two very big studios looking for two different kinds of things for two different mediums.
How do you know what would be right for them? Because these are large entities who I would think do all kinds of projects.
They do, yeah. It makes it challenging, but when I was at Barwood, I felt like I had everything I was submitted was in such a narrow niche. Like I said, Yentl 2 or The Way We Were 2, like things that they just thought Barbara would be interested in starring in. And now it's like anything can go. Like it could be sci-fi, it could be romantic comedy, it could be drama, thriller, you name it. Both studios are looking for everything.
Is there a difference between the two? How do you think, do I take this to Universal or do I take this to Paramount?
Well, I kind of break it down to, is this a feature or is this for TV? And the overlap is greater now because TV is so good and they're taking such chances with shows like Big Little Lies and True Detective and things like that. So it's kind of all bets are off now. It really can be. If I feel like there's something, there was a book that I got my TV guys to option that had been under option for feature. Mm-hmm. It was a book called Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel, which I love. Yeah. But I read it. I was like, this is not a feature. This is a series. I could see 5 years easy out of this book, like as a jumping off point and going from there. And like Walking Dead was based on a graphic novel and things like that. Like it can give you a jumping off period, but if the characters and stories are so good, you can continue them on. So I told my TV guys, like, let's keep an eye on this because when this comes up again for option, jump on it. And they did, and they got it. So they're developing it as a series.
The cliche has always been that, the book was always better than the movie. In part just because that's what people experienced first, but also because reducing a 400-page, 80,000-word novel to an hour and a half, well, obviously a lot's got to be left out. But if you can expand it to a season of 10 episodes, or as you were saying, even multi-season projects, that's got to open a whole world of much more satisfying possibilities for.
And we're seeing it all the time. Look at Orange is the New Black. Mm-hmm. That was a memoir Piper Kerman wrote. And nobody thought like, oh, maybe they'll get a season out of this, whatever. Mm-hmm. And just, I think it was the 5th season that just debuted.
Is that
They're
right?
doing a 6th. And they're signed up for a few more seasons, too, with Netflix. And that was their big breakout hit after House of Cards.
Right. It seemed to me when I watched The Handmaid's Tale, the first season essentially adapted the book. There were some changes, but more or less, and additions in particular, but more or less adapted. But of course, now it's still going. There was a season 2 that really is not in the book.
Not at all. And got to go into different areas, and, which is expanding it, which is interesting, which I thought was great. I mean, I want to see where they take it next.
Mm-hmm. Are there things authors could be doing? You want to put make the book good, obviously, because that's step one. But things they could be keeping in the back of their mind that might make something have more potential later on down the line to movies or streaming television or anything.
I think kind of further to what I said earlier about doing research, know the market, know what's streaming, know what's popular on Netflix and Hulu and Amazon. And I love it that little quirky shows like Mrs. Maisel did so well. Right. And it kind of was a late bloomer hit. Like it didn't hit right away. And it was kind of word of mouth that made that grow. And I love that show. And the art direction is just amazing. And I love the lead actress who just won an Emmy. She's wonderful. Right. And Alex Borstein too. So they got 2 Emmys in the acting categories. I think just knowing the market out there, being realistic about what's popular, what's selling, what's out there, what your competition is, what are your comparisons, just kind of being a well-versed, knowing what is doing well in the market currently.
I mean, the project you just mentioned, Mrs. Maisel, is almost like a triumph of character over setting. I think a lot of people are, particularly younger people, will object to a historical setting, but if there are strong characters, if it's interesting and funny, they'll tune in anyway.
Or you see something like Mad Men and how well that show. Like I remember watching Mad Men, and like my father and my brother would say something like, I remember my brother being so particular about the set, and he'd be like, I recognize that lamp. That is like 1966. They nailed it. That's it. So it's having the great setting as well for a great story and a world that we haven't seen before.
Right. And great characters. It still seems to me that whatever you're writing, characters. That felt like that was like a novel. Yeah, characters are paramount.
Absolutely.
Erin, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Bill. I appreciate it.
Until next time, keep writing. And remember, you cannot fail if you refuse to quit.